Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the legend, the only, I don't even know where I'm going to go with this. Where's a hype joke when I need it? The shortest guy at the carnival that can't even ride on the rides with his daughter. I don't even know. I'm running out of short jokes. Can you believe it?
I know. Buddy, you did it on the pre-show. The opening on the pre-show is absolute beauty. Anyway, that's all right. How's it going, Road Dogg? What's happening, man?
Just living my best life. Before we get started, though, I do have to share something. So for those of you that know, like Karl and I go for beers every once in a while because, that's a thing. We love beer. So we start talking about the music industry. And Karl's like, let's just say you're Madonna, right? Like this is where he defaults to out of any music artist, out of anyone he could have picked. Madonna is who he looks like looking me directly in the eyes and says, let's say you're Madonna. Like you couldn't have said any, I don't know, male singer. Like you couldn't have said somebody cool like a Rick Astley or something. But no.
Rick Astley. My mom loved Rick Astley, by the way. What was his song? He had a great song, Rick Astley. What was it? Not for me. It wasn't my great song, but my mom loved it.
Dude,
what was it?
One of these weeks, I'm going to Rickroll You. That would be actually pretty funny. If I Rickrolled you and played Never Gonna Give You Up, that would be...
there you go. That's his song. That's what I was trying to think of. You know, when I set up a Facebook profile, my first ever, it asks you to do, and religion was on there. And my religion on my original Facebook profile, the one that I still have today, by the way, but whatever, it was old school Madonna. So there you go. I love her.
That explains a lot.
Don't pretend like you don't love her, Big Shoots.
So
pretend like you don't love Madonna.
What's your favorite Madonna song of all time then? Like now that we're on this tangent, we got to finish it off.
Like a Virgin is the automatic one. But my favorite song is the one where she had the abortion and Daddy something. What was it? I didn't just say that. Hang on. What was it? Oh, shoot. She had blonde hair and she looked so hot. Oh, my God. The video. Oh, have mercy. Anyways, there you go. I can't do it. Well, okay.
Hang on. And let me just throw this in there. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy Road Dogg here. This is take 2 of the opening of the podcast. Karl being controversial already talking about abortion. So, anyways, on that note,
let's keep going.
From that, okay, now that we've completely offended absolutely everybody, I do have some legit business questions for you. And I happen to know that these come from a very smart person, myself. So this is an actual sequence that I was asking Karl last week, everybody. And it's just like, man, these are, this is something that I said we have to put onto the podcast because it's something that I was questioning. And I know that one of my coaches on my team was asking me this stuff as well. So with that being said, Karl, what percentage of business owners would you say actually know their numbers, like beyond the bottom line and how much they owe in tax?
Taxes, okay. All right. I'd say that it reflects business failure, right? Like 90% fail and then 90% don't know their numbers. So I'm going to say that there's a direct correlation there. You can't win if you don't know the scoreboard, right? If you don't have a scoreboard to follow, how are you going to know the winners from the losers? Think about that, right? Like people say, oh, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a numbers gal. And that's kind of their excuse for not understanding simple and basic, finances within their company. And that's just a huge, huge mistake. If you give me a room of 100 people, And I say, what's the language of business? 80% will put their hands up for sales and marketing without question, right? The real language of business, the language of business is accounting, right? It scares people. And by the way, that's not me speaking. That's Warren Buffett. So if you feel like he's somebody worthy of listening to, look, his opinion is that business is the language of business. And worse than that, we talked about this, like accountants, and they don't provide any kind of a scoreboard. They don't provide simple direction. A huge, of course, this isn't all the time, but a huge percentage of the time with the average local small business owner, they just do their tax returns and never sit them down to really understand their business or to create, metaphorically, that scoreboard. So Road Dog, the answer I'd give, look, it's 90%, again, arbitrarily, but it's super high, and I'm going to put it up in the 90% range. And again, direct correlation between that and failure. That would be my opinion.
Which, and by the way, what a huge opportunity for any accountants listening, right? Like if you could provide that scoreboard on a monthly basis to make sure, like we call them KPIs, obviously, right? But so can you give an example then of something that would go on a business coach's scoreboard?
Okay, so a scoreboard for business coaches. Look, here's what I used to do. I would do, but I did local events. So again, first thing, I got to establish a little red arrow. You are here, right? So I did local live events. We'd put 10 people in a room, and then I would work out exactly what it cost me, dependent upon the city and dependent upon the venue, right? Like, again, I would always encourage, if you're listening, I would go to the most expensive place in town. Don't try to save yourself $500 by getting the budget location versus spend an extra $500 and have it at, the yacht club, the country club, etc. But I would work out, exactly how much that event cost me. Okay. So let's say that I put 10 people in a room, and it would typically cost me about $3,000 between like some direct mail and promotion. And I have to, maybe pay a partner or two. I had to pay for food, workbooks, room rental, staff, the lead generation. Again, if I had any joint venture partners that I was paying, say I'd pay like $1,000 for 10 bums on seats, right? So if they provided 2 or 3, I'd give them 300. But so I would work out exactly how much that specific event cost me. Okay. And again, let's call it $3,000, but 10, and then how many people on my scoreboard, how many people showed up, right? So there's 10 bums in seats, and then I would also have a list of people who didn't show up, who said they were coming because they were a good prospect to come to another event, right? So all these things mattered for my scoreboard. But basically, I just take the exact revenues that came from that event. And then let's do some quick numbers. Like let's say I charge $12,000 for a coaching program, pretty simple. And let's assume 5 of the 10 people bought, which would be on the high side for most of the people listening. But let's say you converted 50% of the audience, that would be $60,000. Right? So $60,000. Would you exchange $60,000 for $3,000? Right? I want you to think about Bitcoin for a minute, right? Everybody's trying to double their money on Bitcoin. When I did a local, and some of them would cost me $5,000 is kind of where I, kind of in my head, I tried to top it. Like I didn't want to be spending more than $5,000 on an event, but I didn't need to, right? Like if you got one client, again, go to Bitcoin. If it cost you $3,000 to do a local event, okay, and put 10 people in the room, and you sold one coaching program, you had 10 people in the room, and you suck, they suck, bad audience, bad venue, bad everything, would you exchange $12,000 for 3? And the answer is just, how many times can you fill that event with 10 people, right? Like that was the magic. And we would do significantly better than that. Again, and when you've listened to me talk about, Bitcoin and crypto and investing in the stock market in the past, this is where that comes from, right? Like we're in business. If you're in business, this is where you spend your money. But anyway, and now importantly, what I would also do, because that all sounds amazing, right? Who's not going to exchange, $60,000 for 3? But what we do is we track those clients for 12 months. Because again, we're, make no mistake about it. We had, people cancel early, there would be some chargebacks. So that the numbers that needed to be adjusted, right? So the scoreboard is not the scoreboard. Although if you just created that and then never revisited it, you'll be the 10% of the coaches globally. But you create that scoreboard, right? So, and by the way, we have a program called Live Event Mastery that is absolutely killer for filling local live events. All our top coaches, and I know we're living in a pandemic. It's difficult to put people in a room, but generally speaking, if you have a room, you can put 10 people, you just social distance them, keep them apart. It's actually kind of good because of the pandemic, you can use that as your excuse for not putting 50 to 100 people in the room. But bottom line, I've never run an event and not made, again, tens of, not thousands of dollars, but tens of thousands of dollars. It's an absolute laydown. And also as part of those events, if you've ever heard me talking about live event mastery, or filling local live events, and whether I encourage that for coaches, and we've done that multiple times on the podcast, Road Dog. One of the things that I also do is when I put 10 people in the room, there's always going to be a couple of joint venture partners in there. Okay. The accountant, as an example, the guy who owns the magazine, the guy who owns the coupon, the guy who owns the online directory, the digital marketer, somebody of influence over a large body of business owners. And then when I was done, remember, like in the 10 seconds after you talk 80-20 and 1% that equal 50 in your business, like really understanding what small hinges open the big doors. When I had an accountant or somebody in the room, as soon as I stopped talking, what most speakers do, or a lot of speakers do, is they can't wait to get out of there to go to the bathroom. And then frankly, they get a little bit annoyed by those questions, right? As soon as you walk off stage, the power that you have for the next 20, 30 minutes of walking around that room is immense. Well, I dialed in on my joint venture partners a lot of the time after that. Okay. And by the way, I'd also highlight them throughout the talk. If you want more info on that, just follow the podcast and have a look at when we've talked about doing local live events. But when I was done, those joint venture partners, I'd speak to them, and then the play basically looked like, well, why don't we run this exact same event in your boardroom? How many clients do you got? They say 1,000. I say, look, let's just put 10 in the room like this. Maybe I'll do a great job. Maybe we'll bounce off one another magically, and maybe we won't. Put 10 people in a room. Let me come. I'll do this exact presentation I just did. So you just told me how amazing it was. So I'll do that for your clients. I'll make you look like a superstar, and we'll educate your business owners so they can walk out of there and have a better roadmap for their business. And what am I getting at? When I did that event, okay, so what did I say? 3 becomes 60, and then let's water that down big time and bring it, 3 only became 12. Well, when one joint venture's in the room, and then he puts 30 people, he runs 3 events with 10 people each. That's another 30 people in live rooms that I can also sell to. So do you see the way, that scoreboard would have joint ventures on it as well? Like that one event can become so much more, right? Just think of a river, washing downstream. It just goes and goes and goes. So that's it. So, and then by the way, so let's say you're not a speaker and you're listening, right? That's not going to help me. Well, when you go to a networking function, same thing. How much did you pay for the networking? How much was your meal? Yada, yada, yada. Track exactly, going to BNI networking functions. How many have I gone to? How much have I spent on BNI? How much did the meals cost? And then how many coaching clients? And keep your scoreboard. And maybe it's a really good idea for you to go BNI. It's possibly not the best venue for you because they might be a little bit lightweight of business owners, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's good. But create your scoreboard. So Road Dog, that's the scoreboard that I used to have. I think everybody should have something similar. But if you don't have a scoreboard, this is Warren Buffett speaking, not me. If you don't have a scoreboard, you don't know the winners from the losers, right? So create it. So that's my answer, Road Dog.
Got it. Hey, listen, obviously I run, an ad agency for digital marketing. And I know that inside of that, we're pretty consistent in terms of, we know sort of landing page conversions, sales page conversions. Those typically are pretty much, standard in terms of what those are.
Yeah.
You've got your average order value and your cost per click. Like those are the true KPIs, the metrics, the scoreboard, if you will, that we really like to track. And it's interesting because my question here, this is a long-winded, not a self-plug, but hey. When we talk about like vanity metrics, inside of digital marketing, one of the biggest vanity metrics is click-through rate, right? Because at the end of the day, It comes down to how much did you spend and how much you're making, what's your return on ad spend. So my question for you is there a finance, like accounting metric that you consider to be vanity?
Yeah, that's it. So okay. So you're saying click-through rate's just one of those stats that people talk about it, and it gets a lot of plugs, right? Like it gets talked about a lot, but you're saying that's vanity, yeah?
Well,
and then what's
I'm saying
the equivalent?
for sure. If you're doing 80-20, right? Again, mental models. If you're doing 80-20,
Yep.
like 80% of your time should not be spent on anything near click through. It should be cost per click and average,
Okay.
right? Like
Got it.
that move.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So vanity metric. What do I say? So profit. I'm going to say profit. The bottom line, right? Like profit is theory, cash is fact. Like back in the day, your goal was to make 35% year-on-year gains while maintaining a 30 to 40% EBITDA margin. That's been replaced with 20 to, if you follow the stock market and, larger players, that's been replaced with 20 to 30% margins plus 70% growth, which is critical, and really establishing yourself as the market leader. And by the way, EBITDA, if you want to know what that is, it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. For anybody who doesn't quite understand that, very straightforward, and you should understand that, guys, if you're a business coach helping people grow and potentially, shoring up for succession or exit or sell. But anyway, so Netflix, like they stole their roadmap from Amazon, right? Like they're spending billions on content. By the way, I can still find nothing to watch. Can't work that one out. But anyways, so like they're spending billions on content, right? And they're not worried about profits at Netflix, right? It's like Amazon, they're worried about being the market leader above all else and having a monster vision. That's what really the stock market is following them on. Like let's say you have example here. Dummy it down. You got two businesses. One has revenues of 1,000, right, and expenses of 996. Okay, what's their profit? That'd be 4, right? And then you got business B, or business 2, whatever, has earnings of, let's say, 10, and they've got expenses of 6. Okay, what's their profit? And the answer is 4, right? So profit on both of the businesses I just described are 4. But do they have anything similar in any way? What? And which one would you rather own? And then most would say vanity metric. Well, gross revenues are 1,000, so that's the one, right? But is that the one you really want to own? Like that is highly debatable. Which actually maybe the real vanity metric is gross revenues, right? Because everybody wants to hit $1 million, right? I want to hit $1 million. I want to hit $1 million. I bet $1 for every time I heard that. God, I have $1 million sitting in my bank account in dollar, loonies if you're a Canadian, or dollar bills if you're in the US, right? So the problem is that you hit $1 million. You probably heard me say this before, but this is mission critical and so common. You hit $1 million and you could lose 80. You could hit $1 million and make 40 with razor slim margins. So with very little room to like move or no margin for error. In other words, you'll actually get your goal. It's Tony Robbins says, you asked for more money. Well, I could just hand you $2. You got exactly what you asked for. But is that what you really wanted? You got to be able to dial in on what it is that you actually want, right? And it's also like people say like the biggest problem they have is they don't know what they should be doing, right? The reality is the problem most people have is they're not doing what they know, right? Like, let me say that again. The reality is that the problem people have is that they're not doing what they do know. That's your problem. But it's the unrecognized problem when you don't recognize, you don't think about, right? They're always on the lookout for something new, the new tactic, the new secret. What's going to get us from point A to point B? That's why, Facebook just consumes their lives. They're trying to get there quicker, faster, with less elbow grease, with less sweat, less brain damage. The truth is, you'd be much better off and much further along if you just picked up the damn hammer and started swinging, right? I'm not suggesting in any way that people shouldn't, be growing and learning, right? I read, listen, and watch constantly throughout the week. Road Dog, we talked about that on the pre-show today, right? But education without execution is it's the handbrake, right? It's in many ways the actual problem, right? Versus not. So the problem is that you know too much versus not knowing what to do, right? It's kind of just the backpack getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Well, if you've got no progress with the light backpack, are you going to have progress with the heavy one, right? It's like being addicted to learning is great, and I most certainly am, right? But I want your addiction to the other end of the hammer to be stronger than that learning addiction. So when I say addiction, of course, right? Like you get the idea, but really just going all in on it. but make sure that it's not the learning and then not the doing. And if you want to know where the magic lies, like, just look at your daily habits. Like, which one do you fall in? If you're listening to this, just your daily habits will tell you everything. It's an apple a day, not 7 apples on Sunday because you forgot, right? And if this is you, okay, so let me give you maybe a few questions. So again, time to think, right? Privately, a pad of paper, no phone, no internet, no TV, no kids knocking on the door, no anything. Pad of paper and your thoughts for 30 minutes alone. You don't get up and take a pee. You know what I mean? Do that before you start. Huge power in doing that. And then if you fall, and I think a lot of coaches fall into what we're describing here, what would I encourage you to write on that pad of paper before you got started with your quote unquote time to think, TTT? What is the needle moving opportunity I'm not executing on? Like, what would you answer there, right? What do I already know that I'm not executing on consistently, right? What daily habit do I need to perform to take advantage of that? Right? Or how can I measure the results of that action on a scoreboard, like we talked about earlier, right? Like, again, you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and what gets measured gets improved. So again, just, what needle moving opportunity am I not executing on? What did I say there? What do I already know that I'm not executing on consistently, and look for the reasons why? Maybe it's something you shouldn't be doing, and maybe it's something that has to move right up, but acknowledge that. Take some time to yourself and think about this stuff. And then what daily habit do I need to perform to take advantage of it? Right. And then how do you measure it? What kind of scoreboard? So yeah, Road Dog. That's what I a little bit off track there, but Vanity. Yeah, Vanity. It's a good place, I think, for people to go. Like, what should I not be paying attention to?
So I thought you were going to start reading 10 Apples Up on Top there for a second. Great book, by the way. Great. That's still allowed, right? That one's still a go. I'm not sure.
Still,
so
thumbs up.
What you're saying then? So the vanity metric is profit. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. Well, let me be clear. So profit margin and profit margin percentage, which, by the way, are different, are critical, especially for the little guy, to know and have. Like, businesses should have this for everything they do. Like, let me give you an example. A landscaper that knows what they're doing, and most don't, by the way, will know that a widget costs them 40 and that they sell it for 100, right? So to get this, and how do you do it? You just subtract the cost from the sale price. That'll give you the profit margin, or the whole number, and then divide the margin into the sale price for the profit margin percentage, right? For example, you sell a widget for 100. What did I say? It costs 60. So the profit margin is 40, or 40% of the sale price, right? Really simple. And if you own a restaurant, you want to know that when you serve the steak and lobster, it costs you X, and you want to know exactly what margin you make on that individual item, on that individual plate. When the price of lobster goes up, and the lobster is one of those things in a restaurant that will go up and go up dramatically, your prices need to reflect that, or all of a sudden, the most popular dish, where you really make your margin, where you make your magic on the people who buy steak and lobster don't care what the price is. Right? They're not sitting there penny pitching. This is where you make your dough as a restaurant owner. So you need to understand these things. What I'm getting at there, importantly, when the price of the widget and the lobster goes up, your prices also need to be adjusted, right? The average business does not do that. But bottom line, and products get sold at a loss, literally. So let's go back to the landscaper. That's the problem, right? Here's a magical question that I ask clients for years. And by the way, you should steal this. What do I buy from you for 10 grand? Okay, so I sit with any business owner and I ask that, a web designer, a graphic designer, a XYZ, and they seldom have an answer, right? And then, by the way, if they do have a 10K sale, I want to calculate the profit margin on it, right? So I didn't just want to create a $10,000 product, but I wanted to create a $10,000 product with roughly $5,000 of profit, right? So if I charged you $50,000 for coaching, and you had a $10,000 unit with a $5,000 profit, right? We only have to make 10 sales for me to pay my way. And then I'm literally free from that point on. And note what I just said there. I'm free from that point on You got to make sure that you point out to your client, can you believe it? I am free for the remainder of the 12 months because we've already made X, right? Like, again, that really softens the relationship. And that right there, my friends, is a retention hack on steroids, bringing that to their attention. I've talked about this different times, but like, so my first ever business coach made $330,000 in his first 6 months, right? Not in 12 months, in 6 months, he made $330,000, right? How do we do it? What did that look like? Real simple. He owned a networking group. I sat down with him and I said, so what do I buy from you for $10,000? He didn't have an answer, right? I said, what do I buy from you? He said, $800 for 12 months of networking. And I said, we're going to make a lot of money together. He said, okay, well, explain. So simply put, I just said, do people really need networking? Like, how many people that come in here have an upsell, a downsell, a cross-sell, a proper upfront offer? In fact, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank their elevator pitches, quote unquote, right? Of course, they were lame. And he's like, I said, what you really need to be doing is you need to be doing consulting, right? So basically, he started selling $10,000 to $25,000 consulting, and his unit of sale went from 800 to 10 grand plus, and it just changed things entirely. And by the way, here's a bit of the magic. In fact, he actually ended up he started doing networking for free. That poured gasoline on his lead generation, crushed his competition because the competition was now trying to, charge for X. And then he was letting them in for free. I taught him something very important that we talk about in the podcast many a time in the past, and we'll do it in the future. People want to be educated, but they also want to be entertained. When they go to the networking function, he was sitting them down and putting a name badge on their boob, and then not allowing them to get up and move around. And it was lame music and no personality and nobody telling jokes and all that sort of thing. I said, these people need to come here. They'll come more for the entertainment than they will the education, the business when it's all said and done. Anyways, we made some adjustments. What I want to bring across there, and the very important part of the story, is that I said, what do I buy from you for $10,000? He didn't have an answer. We created it. Fill the bank account, right? So like an accountant that has a $24,000 consulting package, and that is competing against the accountant that has like a $2,000 annual compliance work and doing $100 tax returns is absolutely going to, it's no comparison. When you have a $24,000 unit of sale, and they have a $2,000 unit of sale, there's no comparison. Like, I can just outspend you on my marketing times a million. Right? I helped an accountant, did some big numbers. When I met him, he was like, hey, you're the business guy. I want business owners to come to my accounting firm, and I'm doing way too many personal tax returns. Well, this is a significantly longer story, but part of the magic, I said, first of all, bring on the personal tax returns and don't you dare let them go anywhere. And we'd bring those people in on the premise of, how'd you like to pay half that? This year you paid $38,000 in tax, whatever the number is. How would you like to half that next year? Of course, they all put up their hand. We put them in a room. We taught them that business ownership is how they do that. Plus, they can control their schedule, never miss birthday parties, etc. Long story, but the premise of it is, we went to an accountant who was trying to get rid of his personal clients. And I said, bring it on, and then take them and turn them into business owners, right? So you see how much like the networking guy, if they were doing personal tax returns for free, but then bringing them in, and how much does a license sell for? How much does a franchise sell for? $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, $300,000. If, it looks something like a Subway plus on McDonald's, right? Costs you $1 million to even look at a McDonald's nowadays. So anyway, do you see how when you're charging hundreds for tax returns, if you closed one $50,000 deal, how that would cover a lot of tax returns? So the question is, how can you go about doing that up front? How can you pour gasoline on the lead gen? Hopefully you grabbed an idea there. So back to this vanity point. If you're not dialed in on what it is that, like where you're going, what you want, you just get taken by the guy on social media sprouting off about his big numbers. Just ask yourself the question. On the way up, was Bezos on Facebook talking about how much money he was making and posting his car, right? Like, if you go to my personal profile page on Facebook, you're going to be able to see the house that I live in, because my daughter's jumping in and out of the pool every once in a while, but you're just going to see it in the backdrop. But like, I'm just not going to go post my car. And although I have posted my Jeep, I got a very cool Jeep. Okay. I'm very proud of it. But, again, it's not like, you know what I mean? I just want you to don't get taken when you're not totally dialed in, and you're falling for that, that vanity metric. Oh, I just cracked $1 million. I just cracked XYZ with my business, and thinking, oh, this is the guy or gal that I need to be following. I think you get taken 100 times quicker and easier. The vanity numbers. So I guess where we're going, gross revenues, right? So revenues and then profit. And that's without, I'm sure maybe there's some other numbers we could throw in there. But I'll just tell you that revenue, like I built when I did traditional coaching, I built a $5.5 million coaching company where we used to do $400,000 a month in new small business coaching clients. Again, we'd run live events. We did multiple events per day, multiple days per week with local business owners. And, I realize now that I just didn't have a clue. I guess I was chasing those vanity metrics, thinking that the holes were just going to, fill themselves if I got big enough. And I achieved millions. And I can officially tell you the holes didn't. And unsurprisingly, the holes got bigger, right? Again, do you want to get big or do you want to get rich? Okay. Understand, big does not mean rich. Big does not mean rich, not even close. Right. So if a coach is listening, but let's go to like metrics. So if a coach is listening and they want to know what metrics matter, look, number of business owners per day that you have helped and served. There's a number worth noting and writing down. I always say help 3 business owners every single day for 90 days without a path to money and thinking about how you can tip them upside down and get all this money out of them. You won't be able to keep up with the number of coaching clients you have in 90 days. Right. So, and you could do all of that with cold calling. You don't need any magic. You don't need any marketing prowess. You just got to give a shit, quite frankly. Like that's the X factor. You pick up the phone and you help people. And yes, I know cold calls sucks, right? Like then don't do it. Right. But if you just want a roadmap to be able to crack 6 figures comfortably, easily in a new industry that you're not totally familiar, that's just the easiest and most guaranteed way to just go, right? Like, and then how do I do it? Like I do a daily email. This podcast, this podcast, we got over 100 shows, whatever it's at now. I got 900 clients around the world that I'm helping. So I guess it's a lot more than 3 a day now. It's thousands, I guess even tens of thousands per day. Because my database for my daily email itself as well, it's over 100,000 business coaches on it. And in fact, we got 3 million minutes downloaded on this podcast, by the way. So the bottom line is my company revenues reflect the number of people that we are impacting. And it might not be that exciting and we could do a better job. But when you put it up against a coach who's hiding behind his computer, staring at the phone and experiencing pain, his revenues reflect that level of impact. So the magic, if you want your numbers to grow, the way to do it is to go and help people on a regular basis. You'll always do more for them than you'll ever do for yourself. And remember, this podcast, we got 3 million minutes downloaded. It started at 0, right? Road Dogg and I started this thing off point blank. First episode, let's throw it out there. Had no idea where it was going to go, what we are going to do. That's the X factor. And the magic pill maybe is, and what might go unnoticed is, it's how much I've learned since doing the podcast and doing the emails, right? Like, so, and forget me who gives a rat's backside. What about you? When you do the daily email, when you start doing the podcast, what you're going to learn is absolutely going to blow you away, right? It's not how much, like Tony Robbins talks about it all the time, right? It's not how much money you make, or how much you accomplish. Like the really wealthy people will tell you that it's about the person you become along the way. That's what matters. And quite frankly, that's what stays. That's the magic. That's why people make millions, lose it, bankruptcy and this, that, the other, and then they make it back, right? Or the depression or the recession hits, they take a step back and they just come back to it, right? Because it's a standard. We talked about that again last week. So bottom line, that's the, stop focusing on lead gen and start focusing on really moving people, really helping people. without a selfish. It's not about. And by the way, making sales and selling coaching is not selfish in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think it's more selfish to not sell it because of the magic of what we do and what you do and the impact that you can make on people and how frankly bad their roadmap is without you to just kind of come in as an extra set of eyes. But but don't worry about the bank balance. Don't worry about the number of sales. Worry about, becoming a crushing, unbelievably good business coach. And I think that's where magic will happen. So Road Dog, that's my answer, bud. What do you think, man?
Well, you mentioned Netflix and Amazon as having monster vision, right? To attract capital. Yep. So let me flip that a little bit. Like, how do you create a big vision for your coaching business, right? And like, how would you create a big vision for your business in general?
I would agree with that. Like Netflix and Amazon, make no mistake about it. That is what, you look at their share prices and whatnot and how they're growing and leadership and, vision is right there. It takes some risk and some confidence. You can't steal second with 1 foot on first, right? And you're going to get called out once in a while, right? Like here's something I found interesting. A friend of mine was one of the top 10 affiliates for the Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, however you say his last name, launch they did last year. It practically broke the internet and, shattered all kinds of online records, right? So as a result, he got a lot of time to spend with Tony in a private setting. He asked him the number one, he was asked the number one thing, and it was something on a Facebook Live, I believe. But the bottom line is that what was the number one thing that he took away from Tony? And he said that you need to create a compelling future. Okay. And for you, for your business, for your relationship. So if you go to a business coaching company, right? Like you need a vision so much bigger than I want to make 10 grand a month. And again, I say that all the time, but it's just so insanely lame. You got to make your vision also around others, like serving, right? You'll always do more for others than you'll ever do for yourself. The secret to life is giving. The more you give, the more you experience, right? So, like last Christmas, my buddy Johnny Utah and I, did this for multiple families, but one specifically, we gave to a young mom, and it was a Christmas time, and just recently got the news that she'd actually passed away from a drug overdose. But she was clean when we helped her out. To do. But there's a level in comfort in just knowing that we helped her. Like obviously devastated, but it's like I think that young boy who I'm trying to track down. I literally sent a text message this morning because I want to just make sure that he is helped out and that he's okay. Yada yada yada. But there's some comfort in knowing that the last Christmas was a semi good one, right? I wasn't there, but so look, the bottom line, local business owners have a joke of a roadmap. It's like giving, right? Like they're making it 100 times harder than it needs to be. So by showing up and helping them, like I say, do you have goals? They say yes. And I say, what are they? And they say to make $1 million. We just talked about it earlier. Like that's the vanity. Like this is stupidity. You can make $1 million and then lose 80. Like what a bad goal, right? And is that going to happen? Look, probably not. But the bottom line is let's get really dialed in. The more definitively what it is that you want, the easier it's going to be. But they don't have that written down. Then I say, open your wallet and show me your goal, right? Open your phone and show me that the password on your phone is your monthly revenue target, right? Like that's a good thing to do. If you open your phone 60 times a day and you make it, whatever your goal is, but 15,000 a month, we'll make it 15,000, then watch what happens. They don't have that. 80-20. Have you ever heard of 80-20 rules? They say yes. I have a look at their daily but they don't have a clue. I look at their daily activities. It's completely upside down. They're just going from one spot fire to the other spot fire. What am I getting at? That's why you pick up the phone. That's why you send the private message. This is why you get them, on this 15-minute call, on this 30-minute call, on this 2-hour consultation to basically help them create a roadmap and see things they currently don't see in an intelligent, simplified way, right? And they're just, they're not getting anywhere, but they could, right? And by the way, so hang on, I want to come back to, so my buddy who he sat down with Tony Robbins, is the point I was trying to bring across here. He said, what's the number one thing? And he said a compelling future, right? So he had the chance to sit back down with Tony Robbins. So what his dad was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. So he asked Tony, if your dad was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, you knew somebody who was diagnosed with it, may ask for your best advice, what would you give them? Guess what Tony Robbins' response was? This floored me. He said he needs a compelling future, right? He needs to embody it, and it needs to practically consume him. Being around for his grandkids, being able to provide wisdom to the kids, not just being around, but something more compelling to that. And look, I've got 80, whatever the number of years, let's call it 80 years of wisdom that I need to pass down to my kids, my daughter-in-law, and then, and my grandkids when they're going through tough times and they're looking for answers. I need to be able to be that phone call because I know, him, my son and their marriage and their family life so much better. I need to be that guy. I need to be that phone call. I need to be there. That's what you have to create. And obviously there's stuff like diet and cutting out red meat and leafy greens. I mean, it's all, frankly, quite straightforward stuff that I don't think people follow generally. But I was just blown away that the number one thing that he needed was a compelling future. Because imagine, you turn 80 and it's really you're, oh man, you know what I mean? I've had a good run here. To do. You could see how you could slip. You could see how an 80-year-old could fall guilty of a good man and a good person, but not feel like they've got a compelling future at this stage. Unbelievable. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty cool. Right. But so look, you create a huge vision, a dialed in vision for yourself. It's like, when you go to bed and you say, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and magically at 5 a.m., boom, no alarm clock, no nothing. 2 minutes before the alarm goes off, boom, you pop up. Right. So when you set your intention / we'll call it destination, big or small, by the way, the same process works in your favor. It's like programming your mind. The same way that you did it to get up at 5 a.m., the same way you do it to dial in and accomplish your goals. Problem, very few people are doing it. They don't know where they're going. So any road will get them there, including the influencer on Facebook pulling them towards X, Y, Z, right? People like Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, Serena Williams, Michael Jordan. I think Novak Djokovic needs to be in that conversation, by the way. I mean, unbelievable tennis player that is not very popular, but these guys are just totally dialed in with what it is that they want and where they're going and where they want to end up, right? But you got to start with the little red arrow. You are here, right? So big vision for yourself, but you got to establish that little red arrow. I can't talk about big vision and not mention the little red arrow. It's absolutely critical, right? But just think big vision with small steps to execute on, right? And a big vision without those small steps could debatably be a hindrance. We kind of talked about that a few minutes ago, right? Like that could be a, crushing, but I do think that, those small steps, a big vision, is something that can really move people. Or even, like a lot of the big dogs, what they do is they refer, North Star, they've all got it. And I'm going to refer to a compelling, future. And especially in the guise of helping business owners, I'm going to call it a North Star, right? So Facebook, they've adjusted a little bit recently and whatnot, but Facebook grew to whatever number of billions of users. And the question is, does it help us grow? That was his North Star. So if you came to Zuckerberg and you said, hey, I got an idea for the company, and he would first, his question, does it help us grow? If he felt like the answer to that was yes, you get a meeting. If the answer to that is no, see you later, right? But by having a North Star, do you see how it made it so much easier for him to run Facebook? Because he was very dialed in with what he was trying to do, which was grow, right? Or Gary Vee, does it help us get attention? You go to Gary Vee with an idea. If he feels like you can help him get attention, he'll take your meeting. If he doesn't feel like you can help him get eyeballs, you don't get a meeting. It's really simple, right? Like that's how Amazon went from books to the everything store, right? Microsoft back in the day, it was a computer on every desk and in every home. It might have been the opposite of that, like home first, desk second, but a computer on every desk and in every home basically is the premise, right? Google, what was theirs? Like something to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Uber, we ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. So you go to these big dogs, and they have basically got a big vision. Like I'm personally trying to set the standard for the entire business coaching industry. That's what I'm doing. That's why I build the software, hire software engineers, in the process of hiring a data scientist who I'd imagine will come on with us very shortly here. Why are we doing it? Because I'm not sitting here trying to make a mortgage payment. I'm not sitting here looking at my vanity metric of, revenues and, what number can I shatter? That's not what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is how can I shift this industry? What kind of software, like artificial intelligence? Look, I love it. My only question is, how is that going to impact the business coaching industry favorably? Well, that's how I'm not looking at artificial intelligence, trying to teach myself it. What I am doing is looking at it as a mechanism, as a vehicle, as a way to get from A to B to improve. And forget me, who gives a rat's backside. What about you? What are you looking at the networking? What's your North Star, right? Like again, trying to hit $100,000 or 250. This is not the way you want to be doing it. You want to be going, how can I go about impacting the local business owners who are battling, make the goal and vision about, others, right? And people think small. That is half the problem, right? I think that's important. You got to make sure that you're pushing yourself. You got to take your foot off first in order to steal second, right? Sorry, you got to put yourself out there a little, and you will get your head knocked off, right? But it's like, but dial in on this, and it's like waking up at 5 a.m. You'll automatically start moving towards it, and this is going to take focus and also habits, right? Like you grab your phone. Here's what you do. I bet you grab your phone and you go to multiple apps, probably called Facebook, Instagram, and something else, right? And you go to those apps in a row and you don't even realize, right? So rather than think focus, maybe what I want to do, maybe I want you to starve your distractions. If you want to get focused, a better roadmap is to starve, right? And start, by the way, a good starting point might be to go to, in fact, I saw Facebook a lot, literally before we went live here today, Road Dog. I saw a friend, he was on Facebook and he goes, want to know how to focus? And he basically held up the phone to Facebook Live and basically deleted Facebook. Kind of made me laugh. So that would be an idea. Like social media, reality is that it is sucking the life out of a lot of folks, a lot of business owners. Don't let that be you. You use social media. Don't let social media use you. And again, you say, well, how do you do it? You make sure that you're really dialed. You think Kobe Bryant was consumed by Facebook? Do you think Michael Jordan would have been consumed by Facebook? Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is even consumed by the scrolling component of Facebook? Do you think Gary Vee is controlled by what other people are doing on Facebook? Or is Gary Vee dialed in on what he's doing with Facebook, right? So forget those guys. Are you using, did you help a business owner through Facebook today? And are you going to help a business owner through Facebook, Instagram, and anything else you're using today? Okay, that's you using social media as opposed to social media using you. And just in closing, one very importantly, you talk about starving distractions. Like if I'm flowing through my feed and I'm following some, I got 5,000 friends or whatever. They're not even 5,000. Who's got 5,000 friends, right? Not me, not nobody. But anyways, so when I'm there and, something lame and it's a fight with the wife or it's just something petty and silly and stupid, you know what I'm talking about? Just do not pass go. Do not hesitate. Just delete, unfriend, catch you later, right? So what am I getting at? Like when I go to Facebook and I go through my feed, a lot of people moan and groan or whatever about it. I get inspired. I'm like, friends with and following people who are doing cool stuff they're inspiring me. They're inspiring their friends. They're writing really good copy. They're teaching me something, right? Like I go there, I spend 10 minutes on Facebook and I dare say that I walk away more educated. Like I learned something. I find something that I can chuck into an email or I can say on a podcast, etc. So anyways, and in closing, Road Dog, I just want to make sure that, like, rather than thinking focus that I think a lot of people struggle with, rather than keep going down that same track, bit of a mental model here. I want you to turn that around and I want you to think of starving your distractions. And I think that will get people significantly further. So the best way to focus is to starve those. So there you go, Road Dog. What do you think, bud?
would you say that, like, if you had to pick anything from today's episode, the one thing, would you say that would be the one thing, or is there something else that stood out for you today?
Look, definitely that, but no, I think, no, I love what you asked when we talked about just the vanity, understanding the vanity metrics, right? Like what's that old, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right? That's a 101. You introduced me to a guy who works for the man and he makes 150 grand a year. I will immediately explain to him that he doesn't make 150 grand a year. He makes closer to 80 than 150. Why? Because of tax. But he's never taken 5 minutes to work out, what he's actually making. It's the sales pitch from the company of 150 grand, right? And then also talking about the benefits. And I'm like, yeah, the benefits. So what? You go to the dentist, you don't have to pay. When I go to the dentist, I whip out my credit card. I'm not any happier about it than you are, but I just pay for it. Like, I don't need the dentist to be free. You know what I mean? Like, I just pay. No big deal, right? Like, that's why I'm going to stay in this job. And some people, maybe you've got a child that has special needs or something along that fact. Well, then, okay, factor this into it. But don't go to the vanity metric, quote unquote, of working for somebody else. Go to the real number. How much does it actually cost to do X? The example I just gave, like go to the dentist, work it out. Work out how much that actually, what is it? It's like brush your damn teeth and floss, right? Guess what? Go to the dentist twice a year and you should be, for the most part, good. Anyway, no, I like your vanity metric. And again, revenues and profit are the two that I gave. I'm sure that there's some others, but remember, profit is theory, cash is fact. Okay. How much money are they pulling on? Very quickly, a quick example of that, accounts receivable. I talk about that a lot. Huge. If I open up an accountant right now, that are listening in live, they will tell me with 100% certainty accounts receivable is the Achilles heel of the average business owner. So what that means is that they went and earned the work, did the work, sold the work, probably paid commissions on the sale, showed up, performed, did a great job, sent the invoice, didn't get paid, and then forgot about it, right? Like if you understand and then by the way, and then you pay tax. So accounts receivable lives on the asset side of your balance sheet. So basically what happens is you pay tax on that money that you don't collect. So if you meet a business owner and they have a cash flow problem, there's a really good chance that if you just go to their accounts receivable, you could solve a huge problem instantly with and for them, right? Rather than turning on Facebook ads. So that cash, so profit, you could look super profitable, but then realize you have an accounts receivable problem and you're paying tax on that money. So this is why profit is a theory and then cash is fact, right? So cash, you'll meet a business owner all the time. Again, we've talked about this on different podcasts, but basically what they say is I'm highly profitable, but where's all my cash? I don't get it. So there you go, Road Dog. I love the vanity metric example you gave there. And I think that people should really take that away. Don't get fooled with the company that surpasses, 10 million, that surpasses 5 million, that, we talk to coaches all the time and they only go to $10 million companies, right? And I'm like, okay. And that's cool, by the way. And that's probably a pretty successful company, but I'd like to lift up the hood a little bit. And then I'll tell you exactly how successful they are. They could be the hamster running real fast, real hard, and not getting very far. And that happens a lot. So there you go, Road Dog. I love that question. I think that's got huge power.
Beauty. Well, thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets, everybody, with my main man, the man on top of the hill, King Karl. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone that you think might make a great coach, someone that's a great salesperson or just a highly motivated type. And of course, we'd appreciate if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes and Spotify give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And that is it for another week. We will see you on the next episode. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. this becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.